This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
As they make their way toward the top of the stretch, big move there for Caixa Electronica. Pretorero also making a substantial move as the field turns for home. Star Harbor's been there the whole way through an eye-popping 44 and 2.5 mile. Caixa Electronica coming to them now as they come into the final furlong here. And then Power World and Pretoreo on the far outside. Caixa Electronica has taken the lead. Star Harbor second on the inside, and then Pretoreo third as they come down to the finish. It is the venerable veteran Caixa Electronica. And he won again for the 23rd time.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Down the Stretch. I'm Mark Cassano. On this morning's program, following a topical discussion, we will review the finalists for the 2013 Eclipse Awards and mention several worthy candidates who did not make the finals. Then we'll welcome in a pair of guests from Southern California, both with starters in this afternoon's Sham Stake. Mr. John Sadler, who's got the speedy Cristo, and Mr. Kory Owens, the trainer of Top Fortitude. The Sham is the major three-year-old stakes this weekend. Last weekend it was the Jerome. We'll take a look at the Jerome and update our list of top Kentucky Derby prospects. So all of that and much, much more if you stay with us for this, our January 11th edition of the program. Good morning once again. What a difference a week makes. Last week driving in, the display on my car read 1 degree. This morning, 44 degrees. Much more pleasant. Settle in, relax. Over the next 55 minutes, I think we've got a good show for you. We've got a number of things to get caught up on, beginning with Caixa Electronica, the hard-hitting former claimer who became a multiple stakes winner, died in a training accident last Saturday in New York. Caixa Electronica was on the Belmont training track when a loose horse, 6 drivers, collided head-on with him. According to officials, both horses were killed instantly. Claimed by Todd Pletcher for Mike Rapoli for $62,500 back in early 2011, Caixa Electronica went on to win 7 stakes, including his last, the Duck Dance, which you saw during the Open. In total, Caixa Electronica won 23 of 69 starts and $1.8 million. And Laughing, whose wonderful 2013 season included Grade 1 victories in the Diana and the Flower Bowl, died recently while undergoing colic surgery. When we spoke with her trainer Alan Goldberg during the year, he stated that Laughing was healthier in 2013 than she had been in past seasons, something which likely led to her winning 4 close decisions to begin the year. Laughing won half of her 16 career starts and nearly $1.2 million. And Sunshine Forever, the 1988 champion turf male, died this past Tuesday at Old Friends, Kentucky. He was 29. A winner of the Turf Classic, the Man of War, and the Old Budweiser International during his championship season, Sunshine Forever finished second in the 1988 Breeders' Cup Turf behind Great Communicator. Now, we had a number of retirements as well this past week, beginning with the Lumber Guy, the winner of the 2012 Grade 1 Vosburg. The Lumber Guy was also second in that year's Breeders' Cup Sprint. He was named New York Bred Horse of the Year in 2012. He will stand at Keene Stud here in New York. And Rail Trip, whose victory in the 2009 Hollywood Gold Cup made him a Grade 1 winner, has also been retired. The 9-year-old, the winner of 9 of 27 races and $1.5 million lifetime, will go to Old Friends, Kentucky. And Sweet Lulu, who captured the 2013 Test Stakes in her stakes debut, has surprisingly been retired. The newly turned 4-year-old filly, who was also second in the Cotillion and the La Brea, the latter in her final career race, retires after only 7 races. Now, her trainer, Jerry Hollendorfer, said she had a very minor injury. It sounds to me that her owner really wanted to retire her. Talk about going out in style. This is the Marshuas River from last Saturday at Gulfstream and Naples Bay, whose splitting rivals to make the lead is on her way to victory for the final time. Naples Bay, a 6-year-old, who happens to be a half-sister to Medaglia d'Oro, was retired following the Marshuas River and will be bred to European superstar Frankel. Well, in our next segment after the break, we'll be discussing the Eclipse Awards finalists. Well, he isn't a finalist in the trainer category, but Wayne Lukas has won an Eclipse Award, the Eclipse Award of Merit, given for a lifetime of outstanding achievement in the sport. Congratulations to Wayne Lukas. Before we get to the break, remember Revolutionary from last year's Triple Crown and Triple Crown prep season? The winner of the Withers in the Louisiana Derby and third in the Kentucky Derby. Revolutionary will be making his first start since finishing 5th in last year's Belmont in today's second race at Gulfstream. The Todd Pletcher trainee is using the allowance event as a prep for the upcoming Don Handicap. I just recently learned that Albert Coppola, who owned and bred 1982 Travers Hero Runaway Groom, has passed away at the age of 89. Coppola's Canadian champ shocked American Classic winners Aloma's Ruler, Conquistador Cielo, and Gato del Sol in that year's Travers. Coppola grew up here in Schenectady and attended Mont Pleasant High School. And we are up to our first break on this January 11th edition of the program. Thank you so much for having joined us. When we return, we will discuss the finalists for the 2013 Eclipse Awards. As we go to the break, the spectacular bid at Gulfstream, named for the great racehorse who won numerous Eclipse Awards, including the 1980 Horse of the Year. The 6-5 favorite in the spectacular bid, number 2, Trailblaze. So we will take a look at the spectacular bid to the break. Back with more right after these messages.
They're racing in the spectacular bid. Corfu is going to the front. On the outside, Hollywood Talent is out with early speed 2, and CZ is away running in 3rd. After that, Elusive Blue Boy, Trailblaze is second last early, racing on the inside, 4 lengths off of Corfu. The trailer is Just Call Kenny. Corfu leads the way past the half-mile pole, on top by 2 lengths over Hollywood Talent. He ran the first quarter in 22 seconds flat. Now Trailblaze ranges up on the outside in 3rd. Elusive Blue Boy is next. On the rail, it's CZ, who's only 2.5 lengths behind, and far out of it is Just Call Kenny. Corfu on top as they arrive at the quarter pole. And Hollywood Talent is second and moving up right alongside. Trailblaze is under a drive 3 wide. Behind the leaders is CZ, and Just Call Kenny is picking it up with a rail run. On the far outside, Elusive Blue Boy. This one's wide open, and Just Call Kenny's full of run. Just Call Kenny a long shot, charging up to take the lead now. CZ is next, and then comes Hollywood Talent. It is Just Call Kenny, and here's another stakes win for Joe Bravo. They win the spectacular bid. CZ was second, and then Hollywood Talent and Trailblaze.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano, and just call Kenny for Patrick McBurney and Joe Bravo, despite getting away a step slowly from the inside post. Not an easy thing to overcome. Rallies to upset the spectacular bid at 19-1. All right. This past Wednesday, the finalists were announced for the 2013 Eclipse Awards. 3 finalists in each category. There are 272 eligible voters, of which I am very pleased to be one. Of the 272 eligible voters, 249, or 91.5%, returned their ballots. As is the case every year, there were some surprises. So let's take a look at the finalists, beginning with champion steeplechaser. And probably no real surprises in here. No one dominated this category. Divine Fortune, who, by the way, I voted for. Gustavian, and Italian Wedding. Now, moving on to the 2-year-olds. The finalists for 2-year-old male, Havana, the Champagne winner, and a very solid second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. New Year's Day, who went from a maiden victory at the end of August at Del Mar to a victory in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. And he did that despite getting sick and missing training time. And Shared Belief, the very impressive winner of the Hollywood Preview and the Hollywood Futurity. Now, I voted for New Year's Day. I think this vote will be reasonably close between New Year's Day and Shared Belief. Now, the finalists for champion 2-year-old filly, Chrysalium, who won the Juvenile Fillies Turf in her only start in North America. Rhea Antonia, who was placed first in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And She's a Tiger, who crossed the finish line first in the Juvenile Fillies, only to be disqualified and placed second. I voted for She's a Tiger, and I think She's a Tiger will win the award. Moving to one of the glamour categories, the 3-year-olds. And for 3-year-old male, the finalist, as expected, Orb, the Kentucky Derby winner, but a non-winner since, Palace Malice, who won the Belmont Stakes and the Jim Dandy, and Will Take Charge, who after a, horrendous Triple Crown campaign, had a fabulous second half of the year. I voted for Will Take Charge, and I think Will Take Charge will be a convincing winner in this category. The finalists for champion 3-year-old filly, Beholder, who won the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and the Zenyatta, and the Santa Anita Oaks, and the Las Virgenes. Close Hatches, the heroine of the Mother Goose, the Cotillion, and second in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and Princess of Silmar, the winner of the Kentucky Oaks, the Alabama, the Coaching Club American Oaks, and the Beldame. I voted for Princess of Silmar in this category, although I believe Beholder will be, I guess surprisingly to some, if in fact it occurs this way, a very solid winner of champion 3-year-old filly. Now, the other glamour categories, the older horses, and we'll take a look, and we will begin with older male. And the finalists, really, no surprise, Game On Dude, won the Santa Anita Handicap, the Hollywood Gold Cup, and the Pacific Classic. Mucho Macho Man, who after a very slow start to the year, won the Breeders' Cup Classic and the Awesome Again, and Wise Dan, who won the Breeders' Cup Mile and 5 other grass stakes. As I said last week, I believe this category is very, very poorly named. I believe this category to be there for the horse who did the best on the main track going long, because we already have a turf category, we already have a sprinters category. So I feel very, very solid in saying that. That's why, as much as I like Wise Dan, I did not vote for him in this category. I voted for Mucho Macho Man over Game On Dude. You know, I think Wise Dan is probably the slight favorite to win this category. The finalists for older female include Joyful Victory, Royal Delta, and Tismiz Sue. Now, Royal Delta, who I voted for, will win this category easily. But folks, Authenticity, who I voted for second in this category, and I had no problem voting for her second. I thought her overall body of work deserved her to be a finalist. Well, as you see, Authenticity is not a finalist. Interestingly, her past performances were never sent to the voters. Now listen, voters have a right to select whoever they want. And if they thought of Authenticity and decided not to vote for her, well, that's fine. Can't complain about that. But if the voters overlooked Authenticity because her past performances were not sent to them, then I have a problem. Because if you're a voter for the Eclipse Awards, you've got to know everybody, even if you don't get the past performances sent to you. And by the way, Streaming, the 2-year-old filly, did not make it to the finals, and her past performances were not sent out to folks. Now, let's move to the proper surface and take a look at the finalists. In the turf categories and for turf male, we've got Magician, the Breeders' Cup Turf Hero off a June to November layoff. Point of Entry, who won the Gulfstream Park Turf against Animal Kingdom and the Manhattan while he was injured. And then there's Wise Dan, who will win this category hands down due to his 6-for-6 record on the proper surface. And of course, I voted for Wise Dan. Champion Turf Female, the finalist Dank, 2 for 2 in North America. Beverly D, Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. I voted for her, and I expect her to win this category easily. Laughing, who was 4 for 5 during the year, won the Diane and the Flower Bowl, among others. And Misdirection, whose Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint was her only Grade 1 of the year. Speaking of sprinters, let's take a look at the finalists for the sprinters category for the males. Excuse me, and I think this is going to be a tough call. Points off the bench. 2 Grade 1s in the Bing Crosby and the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. Sahara Sky, his single Grade 1 victory was in the Met Mile. And voters look at the Met Mile differently. Some put the Met Mile in a sprinters category. Some put the Met Mile in an older male category. Without, specific, what's the word I'm looking for? Without specific requirements, it's how they view it. And Secret Circle, who only raced twice this year, went 2 for 2 and won the Breeders' Cup Sprint. I voted for Secret Circle. I think this is going to be a very close vote. Now, the female sprinters. The finalists danced to Bristol. 7 for 10 this year. Won the Grade 1 Ballerina, but was a distant 6th in the Filly and Mare Sprint. Groupie Doll. Only 2 victories, but one of them came in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. And Misdirection. She's a finalist for both turf female and female sprinter, as she won a trio of turf sprints, including the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. No Judy the Beauty or Cluster of Stars. I got to admit, that kind of surprises me, because Judy the Beauty had a very consistent year. Cluster of Stars was unbeaten. So there's a look at the finalists for sprinters. Now, the Human Awards, and we'll take a look at the finalists for Outstanding Breeder and Owner, for Outstanding Breeder, and these are all in alphabetical order, by the way. I should have said that to begin. Adina Springs, Morton Fink, who bred Wise Dan, and Ken and Sarah Ramsey. Now, the Ramseys enjoyed a slight edge over Adina Springs in Grade 1 wins, in overall graded stakes wins, and in earnings. I voted for Ken and Sarah Ramsey in not only the breeder category, but the owner category as well, where they're up against Juddmonte Farms, whose 6 Grade 1s were second best on the year, Midwest Thoroughbreds, who had the most victories of any owner, close to 400, and then Ken and Sarah Ramsey, whose 7 Grade 1s ranked first, whose 17 graded stakes ranked first, and 12 million in earnings ranked first. And I think the Ramseys have a reasonable chance at winning both the Outstanding Breeder, and Outstanding Owner award. All right, jockeys up next, and the finalists for Apprentice Jockey were the top 3 purse earners for apprentices. Victor Carrasco was number 1 with $4.35 million. Manny Franco was number 2 with $4.29 million. And Edgar Zayas, who I voted for, was number 3 with $3.78 million. Why did I vote for Edgar Zayas when 2 other apprentices won more money? He was the only apprentice in North America, the only, to win a Grade 1 stakes race. Now, Manny Esquivel, who won the Arlington Park riding title as an apprentice, did not make the finals. Jockey, Javier Castellano, great year, $26 million in purses. Joel Rosario, who, if you add Dubai World Cup Day, actually had more money in purses, $27 million. Gary Stevens, what a comeback year. $12 million, a couple of Breeders' Cup races of the Classic and the Distaff. No Mike Smith as a finalist. This is a stunner to me. Mike Smith won 15 Grade 1s. That's the most by far of anybody. He won the Belmont Stakes and 3 Breeders' Cup races. You gotta be kidding how Mike Smith is not a finalist in the jockey category. No surprises at all for the finalists for Outstanding Trainer. Absolutely none. Bob Baffert and Bill Mott, who basically tied, I think they were equal in Grade 1 victories for the year. I think they were very, very close in overall graded stakes victories. And then there's Todd Pletcher, who had the most Grade 1s, the most graded stakes wins, and the most money. I voted for Todd Pletcher, and I think he will solidly win this award. And then there's the big one, the Gold Trophy Horse of the Year 2013, and I don't think there's any surprises here as far as the 3 finalists. Again, in alphabetical order, they are Mucho Macho Man, 2 for 5 during the year, winner of the Breeders' Cup Classic and the Awesome Again, Will Take Charge, who I believe will win Champion 3-year-old, 5 for 11, won the Clark and the Travers and was second in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and defending Horse of the Year, Wise Dan, 6 for 7, a winner of the Breeders' Cup Mile and 3 other Grade 1 stakes. I had no trouble voting for Wise Dan, and I think he will successfully repeat as Horse of the Year. The Eclipse Awards are next Saturday evening, January 18th in South Florida. So look out for that. There's going to be some close categories with, particularly, I think, with male sprinter. I think it's going to be a close vote as far as the Outstanding Jockey, but it is borderline incomprehensible to me that Mike Smith is not a finalist in the Outstanding Jockey category. And we are up to our next break on this January 11th edition of the program. When we return, off to Southern California, where we'll welcome Mr. John Sadler. As we go to the break, the old hat for 3-year-old fillies at Gulfstream, the 17-10 betting favorite, number 1, Sweet Whiskey. So we'll take a look at the old hat to the break. Back with John Sadler right after these messages.
They're all in line. They're racing in the old hat. Milam is going to the front. On the outside, Side Street is out of the gate fast, and there goes Sensational Bunny to join them. These 3 with the most early speed, and Sweet Whiskey lays off of them with Coca-Cola alongside. The trailer is Aurelia's Bell, and they're moving up the back stretch. And Milam and Sensational Bunny are head and head on the lead. These 2 side by side through an opening quarter mile in 22 3/5 seconds. It's a length and a half back to Side Street, then Sweet Whiskey to the inside. followed by Coca-Cola and Aurelius Bell 4 lengths off the lead around the far turn, and it is Milam in front. And on the far outside, Coca-Cola gets going with a 4-wide rush. Sensational Bunny is in between horses. They're to Side Street. Sweet Whiskey needs a path to get through. She's down on the inside. There's a slim opening there, and she's going to come up the rail now. Sweet Whiskey got through and will battle with Coca-Cola in the final furlong, and Sweet Whiskey goes right by Coca-Cola. And then Side Street and Aurelius Bell on the outside. A rail skimming ride by Javier Castellano as Sweet Whiskey wins over Coca-Cola and Aurelius Bell. And then came Sensational Bunny, and Side Street lost Jesus Castañon right before the wire.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Using CapitalOTBBet.com is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Simply log on with your username and password from the homepage. 2. Fund your Capital OTB account through our Easy Money, Green Dot, or Visa MasterCard options. And 3. Place your bet on one of our 3 easy-to-navigate wagering platforms, Capital Bet TV, Capital Bet Express, or Capital Bet Pro. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano, and Sweet Whiskey for Todd and Javier, a pair of Eclipse finalists, by 2 3/4 to capture the old hat. 1 minute 10.63 was only 5/100ths slower than the spectacular bid. Our first guest this morning is coming off a very solid 2013, where he finished 9th nationally in purses won with about 7.7 million. He's got some fascinating 3-year-olds in his barn. We're going to talk to him about all 3 of them. But Cristo starts later this afternoon in the Sham Stakes at Santa Anita. We welcome live via telephone Mr. John Sadler. John, Mark Casano welcoming you back to Down the Stretch.
Good morning.
Nice to have you as always, John. Let's begin with Cristo. And as our audience watches his second career start back on September 28th, and as we pick it up for our audience, Cristo is number 8, moving from between horses toward the leaders. Johnny was 3-5 in both of his first 2 starts, finished second both times. That was disappointing to the bettors. Were the efforts disappointing to you at all?
Well, I mean, I mean, they're disappointing when they hit the wire and you're the favorite, you don't win. But we never have really lost confidence with this horse. I didn't feel he handled the synthetic at Del Mar. So I waited till we got up to Santa Anita, and even though I ran him short a second time, I always felt his future was around 2 turns. So, but you think, early in the meet, we'll just get his maiden broke and then move on out from there. So he ran second again, and then I said, okay, make sure no more sprints, and then we stretched him out the next time, and he won impressively. And then we're back up right against Hollywood Fall, and I feel this is like a big leggy colt. I said the time will be good for him. We'll save him for the winner here at Santa Anita.
John, Cristo cost $500,000 as a Keeneland yearling. What'd you like so much about him?
I like distorted humor. I like the size of him. When we pay that much, we're looking for a classic type horse. We're not looking for a sprinter. We're looking for a horse that's a big size horse that looks like he'll run in the long distance races. And, horses were very expensive the last few years. So, if he'd been sold this year, 2013, as a yearling, I don't think I'd have been able to buy him. But that year we paid a lot, but we were able to buy him.
Now, you mentioned a moment ago that he's a leggy type of colt. Please take a moment to describe him for our audience overall from a physical standpoint, and what's he like mentally?
Mentally, he's very good. He's got a good, quiet brain. He doesn't get excited. He's nice, very nice that way. Physically, he's still kind of like the 15, 16-year-old boy. He's shooting up, and he's going to look a lot better even in 3-4 months. So he's just kind of growthy, I would describe him as at this point still. but he's got the framework to be really gorgeous, and I think he'll feel right into it as he matures a little bit more.
All right, you stretched Christo out to 2 turns in last. He responded with a solid victory. Here it is for our audience. He is number 4 in here. John, talk about this effort, if you would.
The way Oak Tree was playing a little bit, speed was very good, so I said to Bejarano, make sure, just go right to the front so there's no, messing around or anything like that. So I think he made a concerted effort to put him in front, and, it was a good education for him. And if you're watching the race, I'm on the phone, but what I like is the last 16. He looks better at the end of it than he does in the front of it. So to me, that's what we're looking for.
Now, John, you mentioned how Santa Anita was playing last fall, very favorable to speed. Do you think this colt, now he's only had 3 starts, and this was the first time you stretched him out and the first time he was in front. Does he appear to be more comfortable in front? Is that where you'd like him?
I not really, because, if he's going to run in the big races, he's going to have to, come from off the pace or do some, you want to try different things. We're still in the learning stage, so I wouldn't mind him in front, but it's not a necessity. So, he's a big colt that's just learning how to run. So what's going to help him the most is just getting some more starts.
This maiden victory was back on October 31st, and he hasn't been out since. You touched upon this very briefly earlier in the interview, but this was by design that you've waited for today.
Yeah, two reasons. One was that I don't feel that he really loved synthetic surface at Del Mar, and 2, he's being kind of a big colt, and we think we have a nice prospect. You really have an X amount of races to get to the Derby, so you can put him out earlier, put him out later. I thought for this colt, what's best for him is to let him mature a little bit, grow up a little bit, and keep him on dirt.
Following the maiden win, you kind of freshened him up according to the form, he didn't have a work for about 5.5 weeks. He's been back on a regular kind of 7-day work schedule. How's he working up to this afternoon, Sham?
He's working very well. Bejarano's been up for the last 3 works, and he's been very happy with him. So we feel good about the training. We're not all in January, but we feel he's in good shape.
Now, John, you didn't run a horse against either Midnight Hawk or Top Fortitude when they broke their maidens, but I imagine you've paid attention to them. What are your thoughts on your 2 main rivals?
Both very good. It's a very good race. Even though it's a small field, those colts are very good. We all watch that family of the Kory Owens horse. That mare throws a runner every single time. That colt was fast and impressive, very good. In the Baffert horse, I saw him break his maiden. He was very impressive also, as training up a storm. So it's not a big field, but it's quality laden, I'll guarantee you that.
All right, let's move to another of your 3-year-olds. This one happens to be number 8 on my list of top Derby prospects. That's Candy Boy, a very interesting second behind Shared Belief in the Hollywood Futurity. And for our audience, they're moving down the backstretch. Candy Boy is number 4. He's going to make a backstretch long run, which took him from 10th to the lead. John, talk about this effort.
It was a big race for him. He was a little bit of a long shot that day because he wasn't that fast when he broke his maiden, but, you shouldn't criticize him for that. He did it so easily, kind of like today's horse, When you win by 6 or 7, if the time is not that fast, it's not really that much you can do about it. But we think this is a colt that wants to run all day and is a very good prospect.
We had Gary Stevens, who rode him this day, I believe for the first time. We had Gary on the show a few weeks ago. He told us that he thinks that in addition to now knowing Candy Boy that much better, that the move to dirt to Santa Anita will also be helpful. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, he's trained very well on dirt. He's going out to breeze right now on the dirt. So I think he's going to be fine, but I think he'll like dirt a lot.
John, how did he come out of this fine effort in the Futurity, and where will he run next?
He'll run in the February race, which I think is called I think the first one is the Lewis in February. That's the plan.
And finally, before we let you go, another fascinating 3-year-old in the barn took the worst of it in the Hollywood Futurity, and that's Kobe's back. How's he doing, and where will he go next?
We'll separate those two because they're the same ownership, but he'll probably go in the San Vicente 7/8 to start off his winter campaign.
John, by choosing the San Vicente for him, are you basically telling us that right now Kobe's back might be better as a closing sprinter?
No, not so much. I mean, he almost went down in the Futurity. So, what I want to do is I want to get his confidence back up. I mean, he trained like he could run 2 turns, and we don't think the distance is really going to be, but it'll be more like you want to give him one to, make it a little easy on him. It won't be easy any stake here at Santa Anita, but we'll probably go that way. And this could change, too, as the month of January goes forward.
Well, John, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. All the best with Christo this afternoon in the Sham, Candy Boy in the Lewis, Kobe's back in the San Vicente, and we hope to be speaking with you again very soon.
Okay, take care.
Thank you. John Sadler, ladies and gentlemen. And, that's pretty nice to have, that's a pretty solid trio of young 3-year-olds. And we are up to our final break on this January 11th edition of the program. When we return, Mr. Kory Owens will join us as we go to the break, the Santa Ynez from Santa Anita. A grade 2 for newly turned 3-year-old fillies, and it drew a field of 4. The 4-5 favorite, number 4, Crushed Velvet. So we will take a look at the Santa Ynez to the break. Back with Kory Owens right after these messages.
And away they go. Tastes Like Candy hopped very fast from the inside gate, and Tastes Like Candy straight to the front. Awesome Baby, though, showing good speed. Those two stride for stride, and they pull clear now to lead it by 3. Crush Velvet contend to take back into the 3rd spot, and New Zeal carrying her head very high at the back. Doesn't seem to like that dirt in her face. She's last 6 off them. They head to the half-mile pole now, and Awesome Baby goes on with it. Awesome Baby now gliding clear by a length. On the inside, Tastes Like Candy. Crush Velvet, a very comfortable 3rd too, just biding her time, waiting to tackle them later. And now there's 4 lengths back to Uziel. They run past the 3/8 pole, and Tastes Like Candy down at the rail. Awesome Baby on the far side. Now it's 2 lengths back to Crush Velvet, and a big gap of 6 back to Uziel. Never Happy Today is struggling. They come past the quarter pole, and Awesome Baby now kicks for home. Awesome Baby opens up on them. Now Crushed Velvet comes to try to make a race of it on the outside. On the inside, Tastes Like Candy. Homeward bound in the Santa Ynez. Awesome Baby still clear by 2. Tastes Like Candy is not thrown in the towel. Battling back, and Crushed Velvet on the outside. But Awesome Baby has the advantage as they run down to the wire. Awesome Baby in front. And Awesome Baby has 1.5 a length. Tastes Like Candy, very game, came back tenaciously in 2nd. Crush Velvet was 3rd, and Uziel was last.
This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Missed one of our TV shows? No worries. Now you can catch all your favorite programs online. Simply log on to CapitalOTB.com and click on the YouTube link at the bottom of the homepage. And look for our new podcast coming soon. CapitalOTB.com. Log on today. Funding your Capital OTB bet account is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Easy money. Clearly the fastest and easiest method of depositing funds into your account. Make deposits or withdrawals in just minutes. 2. Green Dot Money Pack. Gives you instant access to your funds. Green Dot Money Packs are available at thousands of retailers nationwide. And 3. MasterCard Visa. Simply click on the link from the funding page, enter your account information, and fund your account. CapitalOTBBet.com. Log on today.
Welcome back to Down the Stretch, everyone. I'm Mark Asano. My thanks to John Sadler once again for having joined us. An awesome baby for Bob Baffert and Mike Smith by a half length over Tastes Like Candy to win the Santa Ynez. Our final guest this morning has a fascinating 3-year-old in top Fortitude for this afternoon's Sham Stakes. We welcome in live via telephone from Southern California, Mr. Kory Owens. Kory, Mark Casano, welcoming you to Down the Stretch.
Good morning.
Good morning. Kory, as a first-timer to the program, take a moment, tell our audience a little bit about yourself, if you would.
Well, I'm basically trained majority for AAA Ranch, which is a family-owned race deal. I've been with them. Well, this is my family, so I've been training since like 1980. I've ran quite a few different places. You know, had horses for about 13 years. I was back in the Midwest in Remington Park and Oaklawn before I came back here to the West Coast. I am from Arizona.
And you've raced at Turf Paradise as well.
Yeah, that's why I said I am from Arizona. That's where I originally started at.
Well, let's talk top Fortitude. You know, Kory, I found this interesting because, you know, being here in the East, when we think of races in Southern California, we don't normally think about overflow, huge fields. But you tried to get top Fortitude into maiden races twice and couldn't get them in. Talk about that.
Well, I did get one in the first time, but I did not like the post position. It was an overfilled race, and I drew the one hole, and I was bound to scratch out of that race. And then the last day of the Santa Anita meet, that was when I couldn't get in because by that time my date screwed up. I got in also eligible. And then by the time we got to Hollywood, I got into the race in Hollywood, but there was still, the races were overfilling. I don't know if it was just because it was going towards the end of the season, but it seemed like, as you say, most of the time you don't see that kind of field, but it did happen.
Kory, how had top Fortitude trained up to his debut? What was he showing in the mornings?
Well, you know, the horse, he doesn't work real hard unless you actually have to make him or give him another horse. So we did that once or twice, so we knew what we had. And then most of the other time, I kind of let him just work at his pace, the pace that he likes to work at. You know, if I thought I needed to speed him up a little bit, I'd go ahead and try to give him some company. But other than that, we kind of just let him. We knew what he had in the tank. We just didn't, you know, we let him do it at his pace.
In a moment, we're going to have a shot of him on the screen. Would you please take a moment to describe him for our audience from a physical standpoint, and what's he like mentally?
Well, the horse is a chestnut horse. He's fairly large in stature. Mentally, he's very nice to mess with. You know, that day there, whether people know it or not, he has never schooled at the Hollywood Park. We actually shipped that day from Santa Anita to Hollywood Park. He, you know, for his first race, he was in a paddock that he had never been at, and his mind is, you know, very, very good about stuff like that.
Well, we are about to take a look at his lone start. This is his maiden race on November 16th at Hollywood Park. For our audience, top Fortitude is number 6. Kory, talk about this effort, if you would.
Well, the horse raced fine on the backside, and I really liked, you know, his situation. He got, going into about the half-mile pole, it got a little tight on him, and the horse itself didn't back up, but the rider, she decided to go ahead and back the horse up a little bit, just enough to get him to the outside of the other horses. And then, basically, you'll see down the lane, when she asked him to run, the horse goes ahead and really finishes very strong, especially the last 15th of a mile.
Now, not surprisingly, Baffert had the odds-on favorite in here. Were you expecting this type of performance first time out by Top Fortitude? Did you think he would win first time out?
Well, I've had most of his whole family, and truthfully, most of those colts all throw great first-time races. You know, his full brother won probably by about 7 or 8 when he first ran. And I had a half-brother win the first time out. And I had a full sister that won first time out. They're very good about doing that. So I did expect to have, it was quite a bit of a tougher race than some of the other ones had to run out their first time. But I did expect him to go ahead and at least, show a good effort, which he did.
Now, it was Kayla Straw who rode him for you this day. What did she have to say to you after the race?
She just was really kind of surprised because she'd never worked that horse. She'd actually worked against that horse before, and when she got on after she ran him, she was really happy by the way he, performed when she asked him to run.
Now, Kory, how did Top Fortitude come out of that maiden race, and how's he been working up to this afternoon's sham?
Well, they came out of the race fine, even to the point we had been talked to by a few people about possibly supplementing him into the cash call fraternity a month later. We decided we didn't want to do that, so we just aimed at this race, and we've been trying to work towards the race. And he seems to be working very good.
Now, it's interesting. This afternoon's sham is, for all intent and purposes, it's a non-winners of a race other than, but it's got at least 3 very good colts in there, with Christo from the rail for John Sadler, who broke his maiden going wire to wire. Midnight Hawk, who I thought was very impressive, breaking his maiden. He takes blinkers off this afternoon. And your colt. Now, short run to the first turn. How do you think Top Fortitude, where would you like to see him placed going into and coming out of that important first turn?
Well, what I'm looking at, just guessing, I'm going to think that Christo, being in the rail, is going to try hard to get to the lead or save his spot a lead. I'm going to wait more than anything to see how hard Baffert's horse is. My horse could set third behind those two if they decided to get into kind of a heated match. So it's going to be kind of waiting to see. Looking at it, it's pretty much those 3 horses are going to be sitting up there in the front division. So we'll just have to see how hard the other 2 are running, decide whether I want to be up closer or step back a little ways.
I believe, Kory, that Top Fortitude is a half-brother to a couple of very nice horses that you've had in Uh-Oh Bango, who on the screen for our audience is on the left, and Easy Dreamer is on the right. Now, Kory, early on in their careers, could they get a rout of ground?
Yes, they could. They really could. Uh-Oh Bango, as a 2-year-old, ran second by about a neck in the Delta Jackpot, which was a mile of 16th at that time. And he had already ran second in the Iroquois going a flat mile. His brother, he came over Easy Dreamer as an early 3-year-old. They didn't stretch him out till an early 3-year-old, but we ran him over here on some turf races going as far as a mile and an 8.
Is Top Fortitude anything like either Uh-Oh Bango or Easy Dreamer at this stage?
Yeah, he's a lot like Uh-Oh Bango, which he happens to be a full brother to.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is both of those horses seem that when they go past the wire, they actually have a lot of horse left after they pass the wire, which is kind of an odd fixture that they have in them. But they, when you see some horses that go to the wire, once the rider stands up, they're finished. These 2 have a weird tendency that when they hit the wire, they'll still gallop out really strong.
Well, Kory, we're really looking forward to the Sham Stakes later this afternoon at Santa Anita. Looking forward to see how Top Fortitude does. We, first of all, appreciate your time very much. Thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch, and all the best with Top Fortitude later this afternoon.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Kory Owens, ladies and gentlemen. And again, this is not exactly an entry level allowance because Life is a Joy is a multiple winner, but basically the sham stakes is a non-winners of a race other than. I mean, the big horses don't have a great deal of experience. So this is going to be fascinating later this afternoon to watch them square off going 2 turns in the sham. Okay, the sham, the major 3-year-old stakes today. Last Saturday, it was the Jerome in New York at 1 mile and 70 yards. The 4-5 favorite, number 1, Noble Moon, for one of last week's guests, Leah Giamatti. The 7-2 second choice was number 7, Classic Jock and Roll. Watch the top 2 choices as we watch the Jerome and the call from John Imbriel.
And they're off. Pin and Win, Noble Moon from the rail, Mental Iceberg from the outside, and Master Lightning is up close. It's Pin and Win and Noble Moon heads apart for the early lead, racing into the clubhouse turn. And Pin and Win goes on with it to take the lead. Noble Moon down at the rail, Master Lightning on the outside. Then it's a break of 3 lengths to Scotland, who's at the rail and racing in 4th. Classic Jock and Roll on the outside in 5th, and in between those two, it's Mental Iceberg now in 6th. Almost 5 lengths back to the 2 trailers, Lawmaker and Matuzak. They're heading up the backstretch. Down on the inside is Pin and Win, but the favorite Noble Moon has now taken over the lead. Noble Moon is in front. Master Lightning runs in 2nd. Classic Jock and Roll on the far outside. The quarter win in 24 seconds. The half mile in 48-1. Noble Moon at the rail leads by a neck. Master Lightning, Classic Jock and Roll, right together 2nd and 3rd. It's 2.5 lengths. Scotland is down at the rail in 4th. On the outside is Mental Iceberg in 5th, and it's a big break back to the rest of the field as they come for the top of the stretch. 3/4 in 1:13-2. It is Noble Moon in front. Classic Jock and Roll on the outside, and Scotland is down at the rail. They're coming for the 8th pole. Noble Moon challenged on the outside. Classic Jock and Roll at the rail by Scotland, and Mental Iceberg is 4th. Noble Moon digs down, holding off Classic Jock and Roll, and it will be Noble Moon to win the Grade 2 Jerome. Classic Jock and Roll was 2nd, and it's a 3-way photo for 3rd.
Noble Moon for Leah Giamatti and Erod Ortiz Jr. making his 2-turn debut off a 2-month layoff. Gamely turns back the lengthy bid of Classic Jock and Roll to capture the Jerome by an expanding 2 lengths. Noble Moon was coming off a troubled 3rd in the Nashua. He benefited from the inside post in here and a nice training job by Leah, who had him fit enough off the layoff. Nice runner-up effort from Classic Jock and Roll, who suffered a wide trip, but really hung in there quite well. Now, it's interesting, the New York calendar for 3-year-olds. The next, prep race for the 3-year-olds in New York is the Withers. That comes on February 1st. I mean, that's pretty quick to come back. We'll have to see if Noble Moon and or Classic Jock and Roll come back. That race was worth points for the Kentucky Derby. Little bit hard to understand why the Jerome was worth points on the Derby Trail in a race like the Hollywood Futurity, which for decades has been a major prep. Even though it's early, it's a 2-year-old race, didn't have any Derby points. All right, last week we introduced our first down-the-stretch Derby dozen of the year. Let's take a look this morning. There have been no changes to the top 12. We are 16 weeks out from the Run for the Roses, and again, the same 12. Now, number 4, Midnight Hawk, is the only one running this weekend. Midnight Hawk goes this afternoon in the sham. And the single most interesting thing about Midnight Hawk in this afternoon sham is that, as impressive as his debut was, at least to me. They are taking blinkers off. Baffert is removing blinkers. He thought he was too anxious that day. And that really is a fascinating move. You don't often see a first-time starter break his maiden so impressively and then have a change of equipment. So Midnight Hawk drew the outside post, not ideal, for this afternoon sham, and will be taking blinkers off. All right, a couple of things to discuss before we leave you this morning. First of all, Gulfstream Park announced that they are moving the Don Handicap and the Gulfstream Turf Handicap from Saturday, February 8th to Sunday, February 9th. That will allow them to help inaugurate the Jockey Club Tour on Fox television. So the Don and the Gulfstream Park handicaps backed up one day from February 8th to February 9th. No Don handicap for Mucho Macho Man. He will begin his 2014 season in next Saturday's Sunshine Millions Classic. He will do that unless it pours rain like it did last year. Then they'll scratch him, which they should have done last year. They'll scratch him, and he may end up going in the Don. But right now, Mucho Macho Man pointing for next Saturday's Sunshine Millions Classic. Johnny Velasquez has been cleared to begin exercising horses, and that's very, very good news. Johnny's been out since that bad accident in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, so he will be back soon. And our associate producer, Julie Hoxie, just got off the phone with Buff Bradley, the trainer of Groupie Doll. Groupie Doll worked this morning at Gulfstream Park. She worked a half. She breezed in 49-2. That was her first work since that troubled fourth in the Cigar Mile. They want to run her one more time. They may go in the Hurricane Birdie, which is on February 9th at Gulfstream Park. But apparently Groupie Doll doing well and breezed well this morning. And kind of an unusual situation in New York today, no stakes race. That's because the Ruthless, which was scheduled for this afternoon, didn't draw enough horses. So they had to wait a day, and they drew a field of 5. On last Saturday's show, I asked Martin Panza, NYRA's new vice president of racing, if there are too many stakes. I think that pretty much proves that there's too many stakes. When you can't fill a race, it's like you're giving away money this time of year, and they had to postpone the Ruthless or reschedule the Ruthless for one day. All right, let's wrap things up by thanking all the folks who helped get this week's show on the air. Here at the studios of the Clubhouse Racebook in Albany, our associate producer Julie Hoxie, Dino Contanacci, and Mick Richards. Back in the control room in Schenectady, Pat Peretta directed and took care of pre-production, Landis Burgess on audio. Thanks to this morning's guests, Kory Owens and John Sadler. And as always, thanks to you for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy this, what appears to be a mild January weekend. Enjoy all the racing action from coast to coast right here at Capitol. Enjoy this afternoon's Sham Stakes from Santa Anita. Have a wonderful upcoming week. And from all of us here at Down the Stretch, we'll see you next week.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.